What would it be like if Star Trek took place in the ocean? That's Seaquest DSV at the basic level. I think NBC has always been secretly kicking themselves when they let Star Trek go back in the 60s. No one really remembers the series anymore, but Seaquest was a huge deal when it was announced. I remember news on it, interviews, there was concerts for the theme song, and I believe the series deserved it. It was a show backed by Steven Spielberg. He was at his peak. Universal just came out with Jurassic Park. How could it fail? Now, don't get me wrong, when Seaquest DSV, or Deep Submersible Vehicle, came out, it was this massive budgeted show. They put a lot of faith in it. They were spending over $1 million an episode. That was unheard of at the time. And they got tons of famous actors. Charlton Heston, Mark Hamill, William Shatner. Think of it like today and all the streaming wars. All these companies are throwing $20, $50 million just to get you to sub. They were using top-of-the-line CGI with simulated water, fog, all this stuff. No model work. They picked one of the most difficult things to do that's hard to do still today. It shows its age, but it's still impressive. I was surprised you could make an underwater boat show feel interesting. Then again, Rockne S. O'Bannon created this series, the same guy who was behind Farscape. It's also where Kent McCord came from. He was used on Seaquest prior to becoming Crichton's father. Everything in the world was beautiful. They took their time to figure out how you could design submarines, transport ships, medical stations, the bridge, that could possibly work for real. Probably the biggest element that drew people in was the casting. The first season cast, I would say, is as close to perfect. Again, you could feel the Star Trek influence, starting off big Roy Scheider as Captain Nathan Bridger, obviously from Jaws and French Connection. He was the explorer captain, see what's out there, help who needs it, and expand on the UEO's goal. Most natural resources were gone by the year the show takes place in 2018. It's weird now seeing Seaquest as outdated. So the United Earth Oceans Organization was created to find new materials in the ocean and try to keep some sort of balance. This, of course, brought in some conflicts like pirates, colonies, rights issues, mining issues, misuse of resources. Bridger lost his wife at some point before the series started. His backstory was a bit of a mystery, kept to himself. There was an AI program installed on the ship that he talked to, but there's really not much to say beyond that, since these elements were ignored fairly quickly. Jonathan Brandis as Lucas Wallencheck, basically the Wesley Crusher character, but I will say nowhere near annoying. Yes, he's the boy genius, but he didn't always save their butts. He did a lot of stupid things during the 3 years. I still say he was handled very well, even through the nonsense. I mean, they had to keep him because he drew in a ton of viewers. He was the heartthrob of the time. I know you're thinking, why is a kid on a boat? He's the guy who created the dolphin translation system used to communicate with Darwin. Yeah, they had a dolphin as an official crew member who was voiced by the venerable Frank Welker. Darwin was the thing that drew me to the show. Talking dolphin? I want to see how that works. They made an amazing animatronic. That's one of the reasons why the show was expensive. The sets had water, transport tubes for the dolphin, so he had access to most of the ship. It had to be waterproof and self-contained. People were dumbfounded that it was fake. And Darwin got used a fair bit, saved the day in some cases, rescued people who were outside, pulled bombs off the ship. It sounds like a crazy idea, but it worked very well. It didn't cross that boundary. The first Doctor, Kristen Westphalen, played by Stephanie Beacham. You probably remember her from Star Trek Ship in a Bottle episode. She played the Countess. Best Doctor the series had. Think of her kind of like Bones McCoy. She counseled the captain every so often. She had a sense of humor. She felt timeless, gave that type of class. I was really pissed when she didn't come back for the second season. Next up, Stacey Haiduk playing Chief Engineer Catherine Hitchcock. She did everything, fixed whatever, got things done, dealt with crap. She had a bit of Tasha Yar in her, plus she's third in command. There's really not much to say. She was married to another character on the ship, but they really didn't do anything past that. This is going to be a reoccurring problem. I mean, they could have done a lot, but the writers didn't look like they had faith in what they made. The second in command, Jonathan Ford, played by Don Franklin. He's been in NCIS, Daybreak, another series that got canned too early called 7 Days. Ford is my favorite character of the entire cast and one of the few people who survived the entire run. While he is the second officer, he didn't take crap. Complete opposite from Bridger. By the book, respected his captain, but if something went wrong, he dealt with it personally, even in a gunfight. You also loved him because he stood up for the crew. When Brass was coming down on people like Lucas, Mo saw him as a kid that shouldn't be there, so he made sure to keep Lucas and other characters on board. John D. Aquino played Benjamin Krieg. If you ever needed an ass character, this guy was great at it. In Seaquest, he wasn't horrible. You liked him, but he still played a schmuck. He smuggled in ground beef. Remember, resources are low at this point. He jacked up prices when he sold things, vandalized stuff, and married Hitchcock for a year. I don't know how that happened. I wanted to know more about him. He goes from being an ass to always trying to lighten the mood. Even with all that, he still wanted to be a captain. That's why he was on Seaquest. Too bad we didn't get to see that. Rounding off the characters are Royce Applegate playing Manolo Crocker, Marco Sanchez as Miguel Ortiz, and Ted Raimi as Tim O'Neill. Crocker, unfortunately, was a character that got nothing to do. He was an old friend to Captain Bridger, so he was asked out of retirement to watch over him. But because Bridger didn't really get a chance to explore his background more, Crocker didn't have a purpose. He at best played kind of a bumbling guy, gave some insight to characters, but really should have been cut in the creation phase. Ortiz, he's the ship's sensor officer. He operates the ship's whiskers, external sensors that float around. Another one that didn't get much to do, he did get expanded on in season 2, but he's always went along with Ford and Lucas, basically a fifth wheel. Finally, O'Neill, the communications officer. You'd think since it's Ted Raimi, O'Neill would be the comedy relief. He did play Joxer in Xena and was the guy who got yelled at by JJ in the Raimi Spider-Man films. But here, he's actually normal/serious. He didn't get too much to do in the first 2 years, but in the third season, he started to become a main focal point in some episodes. He was right there in becoming a real main character. Then the show got canceled, so you never knew what the hell they were going to do with him. Besides some of the characters being forgotten about, most of season 1 was fairly good. I was like, okay, some of these characters I don't know anything about, but it'll get a season 2. They can still fix them. Well, the series had your usual adventures. In the pilot, Seaquest used to be a military vessel under command of Captain Stark. She crossed the line and attacked people, which got her court-martialed, so she ended up becoming a pirate and wanted Seaquest destroyed out of revenge. The other standard stuff, virus episodes, internal conflict episodes, a Darwin episode, more stuff hinting that Earth isn't in a good spot, arguments between world powers, all the bureaucratic nonsense. First seasons are usually slow. You have to build the world. The writers have to feel where they can go. Season 1 of TNG was all over the place. I was used to that at this point. But the show went in the wrong direction near the end of the season when they introduced us to aliens. Yes, aliens in a grounded series. I don't know why almost every show I watched in the 90s did these things. Obviously they do it to see if it works, and arguably it did, in the sense of increasing viewership. They used Darwin to act as a link between the aliens and the humans, but no, I don't care how cute having a dolphin talk to aliens is. It was bad for this show because just like Fox and Sliders, Universal and the writers fell into the same trap. Rest of the first season played out normally. We ended on a cliffhanger that involved Lucas's father. He was crappy, really didn't care about his son, so we finally got some backstory on what happened. The father ran a power plant using geothermal energy. Something screwed up and it was overloading, cracking the crust. Ocean temps were increasing. Polar ice caps were in danger. So Captain Bridger had no choice to use Seaquest to blow up the station. So everyone wondered what was going to happen in season 2. This is what broke the show. Obviously the ratings were good, but not amazing for what they were paying for the show. So in Network's wisdom, the series got retooled. Instead of taking a step back and going, why don't we flesh out the characters that we didn't use in season 1? They decided to get rid of half the cast. The only returning characters were Bridger, Ford, Wallencheck, O'Neill, Ortiz, and Darwin. Everyone else was just removed. No fanfare, no real acknowledgement, just replaced with new people. Now, Beecham was supposed to continue on as the Doctor in season 2, but to save on costs, the show was moved to Florida. She didn't like that, so she quit. Without Westphalen, Bridger started becoming background. I don't know if it was a money issue or Schneider didn't want to be there anymore, but the writers didn't know what to do with him. The season 2 premiere did bring in the Gelfs. They were genetically altered people who were used for military purposes. Once that was done, they were put in penal colonies. This was another 2-hour premiere. They're spending buckets on the show again. One of the new characters that was brought in was Peter DeLuise as Dagwood. He was allowed on Seaquest because his genetic modifications were faulty, so he wasn't considered dangerous, as well as one of the DeLuise brothers, Michael, who played Anthony Piccolo, another experimental ex-con. He can breathe in water with gills. They hardly used him for that. Out of all the new characters, both DeLuise brothers were the best additions. For the new Doctor, Wendy Smith, played by Rosalind Allen, her character did not click with me. She didn't even click with the characters. While Wes Phelan made you feel welcome on the ship, Wendy was more of a counselor, got under your skin, strictly professional, and didn't get much to do past that. She only lasted one season and got one real focus episode, and it was weird. The last two newbies are Lonnie Henderson, played by Kathy Evenson, and James Brody, a joke on Snyder's character from Jaws, played by Edward Kerr. I didn't care about those two characters. This is why I hated the cast change. They made people that didn't get much to do, all to get replaced with more characters that didn't get anything to do. They should have just cut the size of the cast. At least Kerr's character had a good background. There was a cover-up with his mother's attempted murder. She was frozen. He was forced to live with his grandparents, then decided to join the Navy, ending up on Seaquest 2. Henderson, I can't recall any major episode that expanded on her. All I can remember is her obsession with her stuffed bear. She does drive Seaquest, but they just don't give her any real substance. I'm already miffed at the cast change, but then the show decides to kill itself. The series goes into a more mythical / campy direction, since they saw people like the alien stuff, I guess. So we got episodes of them finding Atlantis, dead gods, spirits. The episodes with Hamill and Shatner were over-the-top villains. Really corny movie stuff. There was an episode that had killer plants and junk. NBC didn't even care about continuity. They started airing the show out of production order, which was blatant because Bridger sported a beard in earlier episodes, then removed it later on, so we got episodes that went back and forth. I get that they wanted to make the show faster paced, more actiony. Fine, not everything is going to work like Star Trek, but there's a difference between faster pace to having real-life Greek gods that take the ship hostage. It doesn't work. This isn't a comic. This isn't a superhero show. They ignored what they set up in season 1 for crap like this. Then the kicker is the season finale. You know you got to bring back the aliens, so what they do is have Seaquest be this last hope of this alien race. They have to go and bring them to another planet. They get tractor beamed into a ship to take down the bad guys. Can you imagine if Knight Rider pulled this stunt? Just because you're science fiction does not mean you can use everything from that book. The season ends with Seaquest blown up or not, with some character stranded in the middle of the ocean. It was such an asinine finale, it made the majority of fans quit. I mean, hell, when the season 2 DVD came out, it sold poorly that season 3 was only released in Australia. No one likes season 2. I'm looking at season 2 and then seeing what O'Bannon did with 4 years of Farscape. This man got robbed of making a good show, all because they thought doing aliens was hot. It works in X-Files. It ain't gonna work on a boat show. The production team knew they were effed, so they ended up retooling the show again, trying to right the boat after hitting the iceberg. The ending of season 2 was quickly ignored. The ship somehow returned back to Earth. It's the year 2032 now, hence the title change. No one remembers what happened. Seaquest just appears beached. The world completely changed. The UEO that was trying to keep some order fell apart, so they're now more military. Bridger became a supporting character. Smith and Ortiz vanished. Carr became a reoccurring character. They did bring back Krieg from season 1, but only as a guest star. For the new captain, they brought in Michael Ironside to play Hudson. He's the hard ass. For Lucas to stay, he had to become an officer. Plus, he ignored Darwin. Hudson got on your nerves pretty quickly. The world is now dealing with lots of deadly problems like the Micronesia Alliance. Seaquest is not a luxury liner anymore. Basically, they took a cue from Deep Space Nine's Dominion War. And I have to say, I like the change, because it went back to normal episodes. And it continued what they set up from season 1. Plus, all the characters got stuff to do. I'm still pissed that Bridger left, but I can't say nothing bad about Michael Ironside. The dude voiced Darkseid in Superman. He's a great actor. So even though he was a bastard sometimes, he kept the crew alive. There was one new final character added to the season, JJ Fredericks, played by Alice Neal. Hudson and her served with each other. That's why she went over to Seaquest. She had a gimmick. She's a fighter pilot that people could somewhat control. They had the ability to manipulate her emotions so that fears and apprehensions could be turned off at will. It's real creepy, kind of like in Stargate Universe and people taking control of their other people. Someone could take control of her, which does happen in one episode. The show basically turned into The Hunt for Red October or the third season of Star Trek Enterprise. It finally had a goal to reach. They didn't meander anymore. The problems on Earth got defined. Captain Bridger almost went against Sequence once because he thought the government was going too far. Stuff that was interesting, but no one came back to watch it, so the show got axed in the middle of production. The series finale ended up on an episode about a new character who defected. I can't imagine how that must have felt for her and the cast. You finally got in a groove, you hired someone new, and the next episode you're canceled. NBC didn't care anymore. It was just too much money lost. There was unproduced scripts and pre-production done. Boom, goodbye. I was really mad when the show ended. Within 3 years, 3 sci-fi shows I watched went down the drain. I always thought if season 1 and 3 were combined, the show could have gone 5 years, at least have a conclusion. I don't know what they were thinking with season 2. It was almost like they were trying to cater to kids. And I'm sitting here as an 8-year-old going, why are they dealing with aliens from X-Files? This is the reason why I built up so much resentment towards companies and science fiction. They always get the short end of the stick. I understand why from a financial point, but after a while, you don't care anymore. It's why I stopped watching the Sci-Fi Channel after Farscape got axed. Why should I be invested in these shows when they end up getting 3 seasons and usually no ending? Remember that show based off that video game Defiance? When I saw the trailer, I was like, I want to see this. Then I remembered it was Sci-Fi Channel. The moment I saw that name, I said, it's getting 3 years and no ending. What happened? 3 seasons with a rushed ending. Guess who worked on it? Rockne O'Bannon. That dude is a cancel magnet. None of his shows can go past 4 years. This is why I don't even try out series anymore unless I see it get a second season first. I can't be invested in shows that just die after 1 or 2 years. Even Hollywood started making shows almost have none of their stuff end on cliffhangers. With the amount of times they got canceled, they saw the drop in people just not wanting to even try out series to them just defaulting. I almost didn't want to watch Orville. Seeing the talent that was on Seaquest be wasted like it did? Painful. There were episodes I really loved. Even in season 2, there was stuff that was good. I don't see Seaquest ever being brought back. It's just that type of show that lives on in your memory. Some of the actors are long dead. It wouldn't feel right. Would I like it to come back? Of course. But even if they did a reboot, I don't see it working. Thanks for checking out the video. Subscribe if you want to see more from me. Leave a thumbs up if you liked it. Leave a thumbs down if you hated it. And if you remember a movie or show from the past that's long been forgotten, good or bad, leave it as a suggestion below. I'm always on a lookout for absurd stuff.